She is one of the strongest and most interesting women who ever lived. A life full of incredible adventures and loves. She is the last pharaoh of Egypt. Cleopatra with her amazing story. The date is 69 BC. The place is the Egyptian city of Alexandria. This is where Cleopatra was born. And when she was 18, her father died suddenly. This will be the beginning of her extraordinary adventures. She wasted no time in marrying her 10-year-old brother. Sounds scary, doesn't it? But this is an Egyptian tradition. If the deceased did not choose a child instead of the pharaoh, the heirs are married to each other and rule the throne together. But the dark names of the palace who see her as a threat provoke her brother and send Cleopatra into exile into the desert. She was allowed to live with her servants provided that she did not leave the secret house where she was imprisoned in the desert. However, she is aware that her life leave will not last long. And somehow she must form an alliance with someone strong against her brother. So who could this person be? Meanwhile, a news comes to her ears. In those days, the strongest man in the world had stepped into Egypt. Gaius Julius Caesar. He owns some of the greatest military victories in history. Roman dictator and undoubtedly the most powerful figure of his time. Caesar came to Egypt for important reasons. If Cleopatra can meet Caesar, she can impress him and take his power behind her. But how will she meet? Cleopatra knows that if she is caught, she will be fed to the Nile crocodiles. Wait. She has a great idea. She can be hidden among the items carried to the place where Caesar is staying. It is said that Cleopatra was wrapped in a carpet roll by her maids, and the rolled carpet was unfolded in front of Caesar. In this way, in their secret meeting with Caesar, they will both take over the pharaohship of Egypt and get married by stealing Caesar's heart. Of course, her brother on the throne will also be killed as a result of the events and thrown into the Nile River. It's not easy to impress someone like Caesar with beauty. He was a clever man, but Cleopatra was a wonderfully full woman, both the richest in the Mediterranean, and a scientist who could argue with the most keen Greek philosophers who could speak 9 languages, including Greek, Aramaic, Hebrew. This is how Cleopatra became both Caesar's wife and Egypt's pharaoh. She even bore a son by Caesar. She also visited Rome after giving birth. No one here liked her. In fact, the definition of royal prostitute from the Nile was used for Cleopatra. In fact, she was secretly feeding on admiration as much as hostility towards herself. All state officials and high society attended the invitations she gave in Rome. Just when things are going well for Cleopatra, a sudden news turns everything upside down. Roman senators who thought that Caesar was becoming a tyrant killed him by stabbing him many times in the Senate. Cleopatra's husband was dead, and it could be her turn at any moment. Therefore, she secretly returned to Egypt, to her own country, where she was the pharaoh on her ship. The real adventure starts from here. After the assassination, the Roman Empire was plunged into a civil war. And Egypt is important enough to be considered the backyard of the Roman Empire. The payments made to the Roman legions and a significant part of the grain needs of the Roman people were met from Egypt. Therefore, the war could spread there at any time. The parties to the civil war in Rome are Octavius, nephew of Julius Caesar, who was killed, and Marcus Antonius, Caesar's closest general. Marcus Antonius is a beloved warrior among his soldiers, womanizing, intelligent, witty, and adventurous. He will also visit Egypt to seek allies in the east against Octavius. And Cleopatra knows that she will use this situation as a good trump card. According to historical records, Cleopatra organized incredible parties to impress Marcus Antonius. She greeted him with divine clothes symbolizing Isis and gave parties on his ship in the Nile River where drinks and entertainment flowed until the morning. She even melted the biggest pearl known in history, put it in a wine glass, and even drank it. Marcus Antonius was undoubtedly influenced by Cleopatra. But it's not just because of her beauty or that fun. He also admired the Egyptian way of life and had seen Cleopatra as a woman of divine descent. Most importantly, Cleopatra was the strongest ally he could take with him. Even more interestingly, Cleopatra also fell in love with Marcus Antonius. His witty and reckless demeanor, his intelligence, his achievements, and his adventurousness had officially attracted Cleopatra. They went to war together against the Roman Empire. This war was a great war that would continue both at sea and on land. Cleopatra and her lover Marcus Antonius also walked along the Aegean coast of today's Turkey. They also fought in the raging waters of the Mediterranean. However, there was one thing that seemed to be negative. The fleets of ships were besieged in the Greek Sea by Octavius' ships. When the only solutions seemed to be death, Cleopatra revealed her own plan. Thanks to the intense training she received, Cleopatra, who was a master soldier as well as a scientific humanity, suggested to break the siege by tying her own ships together by hitting the Roman ships with the effect of the current. This seemed like a suicide, but they succeeded and they returned to Egypt with little casualties. But nothing will be the same as before. Because the Roman Emperor Octavius the Younger would never leave them. In fact, Octavius said exactly the following in a letter he wrote to Marcus Antonius. "No Roman should be dragged into war for an Egyptian whore. I gave you my sister as a wife, and you cheated on her with Cleopatra. What did she tell you? Sleep with me or we'll fight. You became a servant of a prostitute." Apart from these, the soldiers of Marcus Antonius saw escaping the siege not as a victory but as cowardice and started to cause problems among these soldiers. While Marcus Antonius and Cleopatra continued to live their lives full of love and fun, they knew well that their end was near. They never approached peace because it would be a great disgrace. The couple fell into a deep depression. Their last great power was also destroyed by the Roman armies. Octavius was about to enter Egypt and Cleopatra made a decision with her great love Marcus Antonius. Their decision was to commit suicide together with dignity without bowing to anyone. First, Marcus Antonius chose the suicide method of the Roman generals and died by sticking his own sword in his stomach. His only testament was to have his grave next to his lover Cleopatra. Cleopatra, on the other hand, would apply the method of the Egyptian pharaohs. So she will die by biting herself into a cobra in a ceremony. Her will was to be buried next to Marcus Antonius and to begin eternal life together. According to some rumors, she used a faster poison instead of biting the cobra. But she states in her own statements that she will choose her death by the bite of a cobra. Roman Emperor Octavius allowed Cleopatra and Marcus Antonius to fulfill their last will and be buried together. However, the tomb thought to be near the Egyptian city of Alexandria has still not been found. The last pharaoh of Egypt was Cleopatra. She is considered one of the 5 most powerful women in the world to have lived. Don't you think her story was worth telling and listening to, not only with her strength but also with what she did and her exciting life? After her death, her gold-headed statues were brought to Rome and paraded through the streets. The Romans, who used to call herself a royal whore, could not help but show great respect and reverence for her deeds. Her child by Gaius Julius Caesar was found and killed by Roman spies. There was no news of her sons from Marcus Antonius. Her daughter continued her lineage by marrying the king of Mauritania. After this death of Cleopatra at the age of 39, the Egyptian dynasty book was closed. And for 2,000 years Egypt was ruled by other countries. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe.